Good morning. My name is Max Murphy. I'm an alcoholic. I don't know if I'm not going to take a quiet time because that's weird, but I am super happy to be here. And thank you for the 8:30 a.m. time slot. I mean, who doesn't want to hear about resentments at 8:30 on a Saturday morning? Issues so deep with us that we almost kill ourselves with alcohol because we can't get past them. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have fun at the conference. All right, wait, I have a list. Sorry. Okay. But I do appreciate it. I was talking to my buddy Dennis outside before I got up here, and I have alcoholism. So what that means is I have raging egomaniac, and I want someone to get help from this talk. About 4%. The other, 96% is I live in a really cold, crummy place, and I love coming to warm weather places to speak. So I hope I do well. I hope I get invited back. That was like a selfish plug. Definitely want to thank the previous speakers that were phenomenal. Thank you. You single-handedly make me not want to get a haircut for like the next 8 months. Where's the only guy in here that doesn't have to worry is the guy with the dreadlocks. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm just going to let it grow and grow because I do not want that haircut. So that's pretty much all I thought about. But it was a great talk. I've been sober since August the 17th, 1991. I have a home group. That home group is a California group that meets in Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago on Monday nights. All are welcome. It's very similar to this. We have commitments, greeters, and most importantly, the one thing I hated most, enthusiasm. There are people there that will not let you hide in the back. And they are lifesavers, and they are irritating at the same time. And I still haven't figured that out, but I'm glad they're there. I've been asked to talk about the fourth and fifth step and how I work that, and my experience with that was, it was nothing short of life-changing. I don't know. I have a tendency to try to over-articulate something or over-analyze it, and it was nothing short of life-changing. Now, that being said, when I got to AA, the language and everything that was going on, none of it made sense. It was almost like people were speaking in a different language. So, on one hand, I was happy to be in AA when I was brand new, and happy in the sense that, I wasn't getting arrested. Total strangers weren't just stopping their car to beat the crap out of me. I went to bed with $8, I woke up with $8. So in that regard, I'm like, this AA thing's not bad. This is pretty good. And out of all the stuff we talked about when you're at meetings and if you're new, all this language I didn't understand, the one thing I heard, though, that I understood was take what you want and leave the rest. And I left everything. I took a cup of coffee and I'm like, adios. I just was convinced that there was a way to do this without doing it. There has to be a way to do this without all the work and get all the rewards. There just has to be. Someone just hasn't thought of it yet. If you gave yourself enough time and crunched the numbers, you will come up with a way to do this without doing any of the work. And one of the work items I would hear about was the fourth step. And when I was new, everybody would talk about it like, I got to do a fourth step, or I'm doing a fifth step later today. And the whole crowd would go, ooh. And I'm like, and I would read it off the wall, and I'm like, I don't get it. What is all right, I'm combative, I don't like people. Okay. That's my list. I don't know what's taking you so long. What is this hang up with this fourth step? So I learned something the hard way. I just went to meetings, and that's really all I did. And that, at the time, that was the best I could do. I wasn't on board for the whole package. I honestly felt that I had like alcoholism light. You know, like you have it per se, you don't have it like that weirdo has it. You don't have it. That guy's 100% crazy. He needs all this stuff. You don't have it like that. You have like a mild form of it. So mathematically, I didn't have to do everything other than not drink. It's very simple. I'm like, all right, I'm here. I'm in trouble. You tell me alcohol is what brought me here. I remove the alcohol. Adios, everybody. Like, I skyrocket. I did skyrocket. It was just in the complete opposite direction. So about 2 years of joining, so we're at like the 1993, 1994 marker. The court cases are cleared up. You know, I have an apartment. I got some roommates. I have a job. And I was like, you know, that 2 years in AA was kind of an interesting experience. I'm glad I went. I wish them the best. You know, I'm definitely not going to drink. I know, like, they gave me that kit of tools, so I'm well aware of everything I have to do now. And I went out, and I didn't drink, but I just stopped going. And the scariest thing to me about stopping going is it makes sense to you. Like, you sell yourself that idea, and you buy it. And the idea was, you know, I'm 24. I live in the third largest city in the United States. It's kind of hard to have a full life when you're in meetings every night during the week. It's kind of AA's fault that I need to leave. Like, you're kind of slowing me down a little bit to where I can't really do the things I want to do with my free time if I'm always in here. And that is, like, clearly frightening thinking. And I've been sober a little over 28 years, and it is alarming to me the fact that we see each other, unfortunately, come and go a lot, and no one announces, hey, I'm on my way out. It's a slow, tedious walk out the back door. It's not a quick, I'm out of here. It's, hey, where's so-and-so? For some reason, everybody starts taking guitar lessons. I can't figure that out. Like, the first thing they do, 2 years, guitar lesson. So you stop seeing them at meetings. And then it's, I wanted to learn how to skydive. It's all like really good things. No one's like, I wanted to spend 8 hours at home thinking about myself. Like, no one says that. But everybody has these things that they start doing, and we slowly start drifting away. So that was my experience. I was going to meetings, I did fellowship, I had friends, but I wasn't doing any of the steps. I never read the book. Actually, my big book, I used to hide money in it because I know I'm not going to open it, so the safest place to hide money from myself was in my big book. And then after that, it propped up an air conditioner because it was like the perfect size where the window ledge met the air conditioner. So I just go to meetings, I just do the fellowship, and I really do nothing else. And I slowly start drifting out the back door. And the idea completely makes sense. It makes sense 100%. And what had started to happen to me at this time, I have no idea that I'm more dangerous without alcohol. I'm completely clueless to the fact. I think that, like I said, that since it's removed, everything should work out. And I have no relief for the me problem, zero. And that slowly starts to become evident in my day-to-day life. So what starts happening is I start doing things like, I'm in a relationship I don't want to be in. And instead of saying, hey, do you got a second? I want to sit down and talk to you about this. I'm like, you know what? Just tell her you got transferred to California. So I'm like, hey, I don't know what to do with this news. I mean, on one hand, it's kind of good, but on the other, I don't know how I'm going to see you. I have to go to California for this job. And she literally was like, that's okay. We could stay together. We could do long distance. Now, I'm committed to this lie, so now I have to find a way to get to California. I can't say, like, you know what, I lied to you and to avoid breaking up with you, so now I have to go to California. It all makes sense at the time. None of this didn't make any, I wasn't like, hey, this is crazy. It all made sense at the time. And you know what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous is I was telling my friend Rita this story this morning. We were having coffee. And she told me that when she was brand new, the guy she was dating, she didn't know how to break up with him, so she said that she fell in love with her sponsor and didn't know she was a lesbian. That is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm like, I totally get that. I would have done the same thing. Like, I totally understand that. Now, you tell a normal person that, they immediately get uncomfortable. I felt more comfortable. I felt close. I'm like, wow, we're like closer now as friends. Like, so I totally get it. FYI, in Chicago, we call that podium gold. So now what happened? So I'm committed to this lie. I'm about 4 months into the lie. I have to tell my employers that I'm moving to California. And in the meantime, you know, little things, like the thing that always impressed me about this disease of alcoholism, for the people who don't have it, they always assume that it's like some catastrophe that sets you over the edge. And I'm always like, no, like I tripped over a phone cord and I lost it, man. I'm into the stratosphere. It's never a big deal. It's always like this little, you know, I'm just getting picked at a little bit. Every time I go outside, there seems to be more people on the bus than there were the day before. You know, and I know the bus driver doesn't like me. And it goes and goes. And then I get to work and I'm like, you're going to get fired today. You better quit in grand fashion. Now, again, I have this disease. I never once believed in burning a bridge. I don't understand that. I burned the connecting towns and just let the bridge fall into the water. That way, there's zero gray area on fixing this. So I show up to work and everything is, what's that supposed to mean? Did he get a raise? Where's my raise? I better get a raise. Don't they? I made it here on time. One day this last month, I was on time. Don't they see my worth? And I worked in the trading, I was on the trading floor at the Chicago Board of Trade, and I was convinced that if I quit, the U.S. Treasury was going to take notice. Literally, the ticker tape would say, MGM turned his badge in this morning. Like, trading has come to a halt at 8:40 because someone ate his sandwich. Like, that's what I thought was going to come across. So these are the delusions I'm under. But I'm slowly getting needled by life. And I have no solution. I have zero solution. The solution I have, I'm coming up with my own ideas. Like I said, quit before you get fired. Move to California to get out of a relationship. One of the things I came up with in this bout of dryness, I mean, the computer was around, but it wasn't like it is now. It was like, you know, it was there, but it wasn't anything like it is now. And I just assumed, you know, Murphy's got to be a common last name. There's got to be a million Murphys across the U.S. There's no way the IRS could find one Murphy in Chicago. So why pay them? If you know they can't find you, there's really no point of sending this check in. That was like really, really bad decision number one. And for the life of me, I don't know how it took them so long to find Osama bin Laden. They found me, like tax day is April 15th. April 17th, there were like guys at my house, like, you got our check? I'm like, how did you find me so fast? I still don't understand that. But I'm slowly, it's just one bad decision after one bad decision. And what is starting to happen to me now is my sober life is starting to look like my drinking life. Because now the bus that I didn't want to be on that was getting a little crowded, now they're pulling it over to kick me out. You know, things are starting to happen to me that I can't explain to people. People that I used to be able to explain things to, like, why'd you do that? I'm like, I got super wasted last night. They're like, all right, that makes sense. And then they go, why'd you do that? And you're like, I don't know. I haven't had anything to drink in 3 years. I have no idea why I'm acting like this. And I can't see that there's a problem with this behavior. Because again, I was married to the fact that if alcohol was my problem and I don't put that in my body, everything should be working out. It's that simple. I don't have to do all this work. The people with real alcoholism have to do the work. I can come into meetings once every 4 months, literally find the noisiest chair, the squeakiest chair to disrupt the whole meeting, and the loudest piece of candy wrapper you've ever seen in your life. Now, you're laughing because you've all experienced this. And if you're sitting there telling yourself, this is just my perception disorder, no one's going to try to be this disruptive, they are. I did it on purpose. Meeting starts at 8, 8:15. Boom! The door just comes flying open. Oh, you're in the middle of how it works. Sorry. Oh, this chair, don't want that one. Going to grab another one. Speaker starts talking. Here comes the king. What's everybody looking at? I was that guy because I slowly started to get angry at Alcoholics Anonymous because I would pop in and I would say, like, what is wrong with me? I did everything you said other than get a sponsor and go to meetings and work the steps. Other than that, I did everything. And I can't believe I'm living like this. And you go to my home and there's no furniture and I have a job and I have a pillowcase. A T-shirt for a pillowcase. I have no shower curtain. I just don't know where to buy these things. So I don't have a shower curtain. It never occurs to me to ask someone, hey, do you know where to get shower curtains? I don't know. Sweatshirt on the floor for a bathroom rug. This is how I live. And I seriously started ordering food from this place that had a cigarette machine so I could add a pack of cigarettes to my food order. And when I tell you honestly, I was doing this because I was starting to be afraid to go outside. And I was afraid to go outside because there's people out there. There's people out there that I can't stand. There's people out there that don't walk fast enough. There's people out there that have 18 items in the 15-item checkout lane. They're all over the place. There's people on the bus with their bags on the seat next to them. And I'm slowly taking it all in, and it is slowly driving me nuts, and I have no solution for this discomfort. Zero solution, and I start acting accordingly. And how I act is, and I go on the defensive. And one of the things, the alarming thing that happened to me that made me take note of this lifestyle, so like I told you, I moved out here, or not out here, I moved to California to get out of a relationship, which didn't work. But I was in California, and I got a job, and they said, all right, well, all you got to do is get your Illinois license transferred over to a California driver's license, then, you're hired. No problem. I had a phone bill. I think I had my birth certificate with me. I went to the San Francisco DMV, which, by the way, is an absolute zoo. I don't know if you've ever been there. Like, the line is like 18 blocks long. I live like across town, got on the bus, and then walked like almost back to where I got on the bus to get in the line, to get in the DMV. So I'm already like, this is going to be bad. And I got up to the window, and they wouldn't take my Illinois driver's license as a valid form ID. And I don't know what happened. I kind of blacked out at this point. But at some point, the other lady behind the counter is like tapping on this button. I'm like, what are you tapping on? And she's just like tapping on this button. And it's not like the movies where police walk up and they're like, sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave. I was instantly in a chokehold, like Billy Club around. I'm like, and thrown out of the DMV in San Francisco. And I, picked myself up off the sidewalk, and I was like, kind of similar to drinking, just not drinking. Like, I've never been thrown out of somewhere sober, so I can put that on my bucket list of, I've never been escorted out anywhere sober until that point. But that was one of the moments, I'm like, this is not going well. This is not going. When I walked in here in 91, I heard of life will take on new meaning. the promises. I was living the anti-promises. I had the promises were happening to me in complete reverse. You'll hate more people. You're going to be broker than you ever thought, even though you're not drinking. Who knows? You can't figure that out. All of it was in complete reverse. And I was getting so angry at what we do. I had to have something to blame. So now it's your fault. This is your fault. I came to do what you did, and you didn't help me. I'm a result of you failing. I knew this was a scam. I knew it. I told myself that my second week here. There's no way people are this nice. There's just no way. And, I live with these ideas. And anyway, make a long story short, believe it or not, I was fired from that job in California. So I had nowhere to go, so I called the girlfriend and said, listen, I really miss you. Being out here has taught me how much I love you. If there's any way you could pick me up from the airport and I can move back in, we could start from scratch. Everything's going to be great moving on out. And she said yes, and that lasted 40 hours. She threw me out of there. And then I had a friend, a guy that I hung out with a lot when I first got sober. I asked him if I could move into his place. And again, the sober life is now mirroring the drinking life, because now when I ask for help, people are giving me a list of demands. Yeah, all right, just like when I was drinking, they're like, yeah, you can stay here. I don't want you screaming at the TV. I don't want you punching the walls. I don't want you yelling at neighbors. You can't, and I needed a place to stay, so I agreed. But I don't see any of these behaviors as a problem, none of them. And so now I'm back in Chicago. I'm trying to get my old job back. I just stay up all night. That's all I do is I stay up all night. I stay up till 4 in the morning. I sleep all day. And I am beyond miserable. I'm in some place that I didn't know existed without alcohol. I had no idea that you could go to these lengths without alcohol. I really didn't know that. And when I first came to the rooms, I had a sponsor, but it had been a couple of years since I talked to him. And what was happening was I was slowly, my list of options at that time were, you could drink again, but I couldn't escape the thought of, yeah, you could drink again, you might come back, you might not, but you know that you're going to have all these problems the second you wake up, drinking or no drinking. They're not going anywhere. So, maybe that's not an option. And then when suicide starts becoming an option to the sober person, that's when it's time to ask for help. That's when it's time to put the brakes on and go, you know what, something is not right here. This math is really not working out. And I called this guy, and, he was an AA member. It's good to hear from you. I'm glad you called. How are you doing? It's been a couple of years. I heard you moved to California. Is everything all right? And I said, no, it's not all right. I don't know what's wrong with me. I want to die. I want to take my own life. I think about taking my own life, and I don't see how this is going to get any better. And the exact words were, you have to do a 4-step. You have to do this step. And I said, fine. And I'm so fortunate, I really am. I'm so fortunate that I'm a member of AA with 2 bottoms. I had the bottom that brought me here, and I had the bottom that made me want to work the steps. And I met him that morning, and we met at a meeting, and I didn't have any reservation. I know a lot of people, when you're just going through the steps, that's not how I came into this. So I had no reservation about how to do it. I had no idea what people were talking about. And he took this sheet of paper and he wrote a line. And then on the left side of the line, he wrote, person, place, or thing. Give me something. And I'm like, I don't know. Give me something. You have to say something. And I'm like, people. And he's like, all right, that's a little general, but we'll start. And he wrote down people. And then on the other side of the line, he wrote, the cause. What happened? And I'm like, they're everywhere. Everywhere I go, they're usually right behind me somewhere. On the other side of that, then he wrote, what does that affect? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, that's all right. That's what you're going to think about. And then he drew another line, and on the other side of that, he's like, I want you to write down your part. And I said, you want me to write down my what? My part for hating people? I just hate them. Doesn't everybody hate people? And he's like, no. Not everybody hates people. And he goes, you're kind of not in a position to debate this right now. And I said, all right. And we agreed to meet later on that afternoon, and I sat in the back of what it's called the Lincoln Park Alano Club, and I wrote, next one, on to the next one. And I love what we do here, and I have a ton of respect for Bill and Bob. And one of the things I love most is that when they were getting this together, they knew that they had to find a way to get the alcoholic to talk about things they were never going to talk about. And I don't know which one of them came up with it, but one of them was like, bring up resentment, because that's going to open up the floodgate for everything they have to say, every secret, everything. And that's exactly what happened to me. It started out by talking about my resentments. And I honestly don't remember everything that was on that list. This was in 1996. But I remember going over it. We met at his house, and I'm reading this, and I'm still not completely aware of everything we're doing, but I know for a fact that I was slowly starting to feel better. And that was the first time I felt better since I came here, and that had been about 3 years. And I slowly started to feel better. And we went over, and then on to the next one, then on to the next one. And one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in my life happened to me in that moment in 1996. He said, well, why did you do that? To whatever, I don't even remember the thing that was on there. And I said, well, I was afraid that, and I had never said that before in my life. That was the very first time I had said that I was afraid. And when you get into this book, it goes on to talk about that, especially in these steps, that fear is this corrosive thread that runs through our lives to the point where it can kill us, that it will make us drink again, and for us to drink is to die. And I had never said in my adult life, my teenage life, my toddler life, I'm afraid. And I was afraid. I was afraid every day I went outside. I was afraid that you were going to know I was afraid. I was afraid of losing jobs. I was afraid of getting jobs. I was afraid of being happy. I was afraid of being sad. I was afraid of having money, losing money. All of it made me uncomfortable because I knew in my soul, I don't know how normies do it. I don't know. I have no idea how people live. I don't know anything about this adult stuff. I can't buy a shower curtain. I don't know where you go to get these things. Just so you know, if you're in the same boat, Walgreens, Target, Home Depot, everybody, Lowe's sells them, Sears, you can get them all over the place. Some have fish on them, some are plastic, some are cloth, some are microfiber. They almost always come with 12 hooks. That means you got to get 12 rings. I learned all that in AA. So we started. I also learned how to buy bath towels too, but that's another. So we started going over this stuff, and I started to say things I was convinced that I was going to die with. I was convinced I was going to die with. There wasn't, and I know it's common to say, but, you know, I knew I was going to die with it as much as I knew my name was Max Murphy. And I remember would hear people talk about this stuff in meetings and say, you know what, I mean, what these guys are doing and what they wrote, that kind of worked in the 30s. I don't know where they're from. You know, I know one of them's from upstate New York, some guy's from Ohio. But where I grew up, to the day you die, you just keep your mouth shut. And I couldn't, at that moment, what I had on paper was the best I could do. That's what I knew what was in front of me, that's what I could get out. And I started to get relief, and then we went on, and we talked about my fears, and I had never talked about fears before, and all the things that made me uncomfortable, and all the things that made me afraid to be out in the world. And I was able to see now that I acted the way I act because when I go out here, when I get away from you, I'm in situations where people inadvertently push that uncomfortable button. They ask me a question I don't know the answer to. So I don't want to look stupid, so I immediately get afraid. Now I operate in a manner that is not beneficial to what we do here. And from that, I have consequences. And I was learning this, that all this in this time is sitting down with this gentleman, and years of problems started to fall away. Years of hatred started to fall. And I was starting to see that I was doing a lot of the things that I was doing solely because I was afraid, just solely because I lived with a fear that I didn't know how to deal with. The only thing that helped me with that fear was being intoxicated. Nothing else ever helped with that. And this was starting to help with that in that moment. And we're going along, and then we got to the part where I wrote down some stuff that I had never wrote down before, which was my part. In the history of me, in the history of Max Murphy, where, teachers, counselors, employers would always ask the million-dollar question, what's wrong with you? Why do you do that? Why are you acting like that? Why are you doing this? I don't know. I don't know. I finally had an answer. I finally had some ammunition. Now, if they were going to ask me that, I wasn't going to go, well, I'm deeply afraid. I wasn't going to say that, but now I knew what it was that was making me do the things that were causing me so much pain. Prior to that, I had no idea. I just operated. That's all I did. I just operated. And one of the saddest things to me about being dry in Alcoholics Anonymous was that when I woke up in the morning, I did not set out to have consequences. I set out to try to be happy, try to get along with my fellow man, work when I was at work. I tried to do all those things, but with no tools, it was a complete train wreck. It was total catastrophe because I have no defense really against myself. And by doing this, I was starting to get that defense. And we went on, and I had this experience, and what I want to tell you is when I left that day, I know that the chapters wrap up like we feel closer to our Creator, we feel a sense of oneness with the universe. I don't know. I wasn't going over all that checklist. But I do know that I walked with my head up. That was the first time I walked with my head up in what seemed like forever. And I immediately stopped doing something that I could not stop doing on my own, was that I immediately stopped being a victim. It just vanished. It really, all these years of consequences, all these years of broken relationships, all these years of problems were always because of what you did to me. I wouldn't act this way. I would not do these things if you didn't do what you were doing. Don't you see how this works? And they never do, just so you know. They have no idea how this works. And that immediately left me, and I felt what I consider to be one of the greatest things that ever happened to me here was that I felt like this would work, that I was actually a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was one of my greatest fears. To commit to this meant that you commit to it. You are going to do these steps. You don't get to drink anymore. One day at a time, you get to live this life if you do this work. And I was terrified of making that leap, but the other side was worse. So it was almost like by accident I made the leap to go forward because I could not go backwards. At that moment, I could not go backwards. And feeling like I was a part of this made all the difference in the world. And it was through these steps, 4 and 5, that was my ride to feel like I was a part of the whole thing, that I was actually going to be here. Prior to that, everything was a dice roll. Everything was a dice roll. I had, if everything went my way, good day, nice to people. If it didn't, bad day, burnt bridge, consequences, thoughts of taking my own life. So everything was a dice roll until I did these 2 steps, both 4 and 5. And I walked away with this experience a different person than when I was in meetings now. I wanted to be there. I wanted to share my experience with people. I wanted to help out. I wanted all the stuff that I thought was cheesy. I wanted to be that person of enthusiasm, which I never wanted to be before. And that was all of doing what I benefited from, not understanding what we were doing and giving up some secrets that I was prepared to never give up. And from doing that, everything changed. I have a completely different life today than when I walked in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got everything that I never wanted. I got it tenfold. I'm not going to lie to you. I was sober for 30 days, and I was like, all right, at the 31st day we get money, right? At some point, all right, so maybe at 2 months we get money. Well, when do they make a movie about us? What day does that happen? These are the things I wanted by being sober. But as a result of doing these steps, especially in 4 and 5, dignity, self-respect, honor, fearlessness, looking people in the eye, doing what you say you're going to do. This really vanilla life that is like super vanilla, but it is so enjoyable. It is enjoyable to do this. Coming to places like this, being a part of, finally being a part of. And all that came through the fourth and fifth step. Thank you.